So what ended up happening? Did the widow? How did it work? What was
She
the
got
final?
a check for over $150,000.
Wow.
When she got that big check and she knew she didn't and was going to be getting money every month and knew she never had to worry. I remember looking at her and telling her, this is why he did it.
Absolutely, yeah.
It wasn't about him anymore at that point. He knew his time was short.
Yep.
He did it for you.
On this channel, not only do we want to showcase what we're doing for veterans, but we also want to support other veterans that are in business as well. One particular business venture that we like, and we know that you like as well, is investing in multifamily real estate. Investing in real estate can be a number one way to build wealth for you and your family, and we want to shout out Montevani Capital. Be sure to check the link in the description below where you can click and find out more. Okay, welcome back to another 7 Principles podcast. I'm happy to have you guys here once again. We are here to discuss the lives of veterans and, of course, humanizing the experience with veterans claims. And I'm lucky to have with us today Martha Russ, but she goes by Marty, that works here at our firm. She's one of our VSRs, and she brings a lot of experience to the table. She also brings a lot of knowledge about veterans claims, a lot of passion as well. And I am just so happy to have her here on a part of our team. And we want to showcase to you guys just some things that we deal with on a normal day, things that we, of course, experience. And we want to have just a normal human conversation. So with that being said, Marty, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jazz.
Yeah. So, I'm happy you decided to work with me on this project and, of course, jump onto the show. I did want, of course, just humanize things. So let's just get right into it. Where are you from in the world, and what brings you to Virginia?
Well, I'm from a very small town in Michigan called Marlette.
Okay.
Not much going on there, but farming and factories that support the auto industry.
Okay.
And I knew neither one of those were my passion for my future. And I was talking to the Navy recruiter, and he brought up these little known things called computers and how the military was going to begin innovating them. I graduated from high school back in 1987. Computers weren't a big thing back then. So I was like, that is for sure the way of the future. We're already learning about them in school. I'm going to go ahead and jump on the bandwagon and go and do something different and go see something different than where I'm from. A lot of the people in the town that I come from stay right around that area. They may go on 1 or 2 big vacations in their lifetime, but for the most part, we stay pretty close to home.
Yeah. So, they have the thing called the glove that I learned about. And I've been to Michigan, I think, maybe one time in my whole entire life. Where are you at on the glove?
Right
so
there.
You're right here.
Marlette is called the heart of the thumb. It's in the very middle of the thumb area of Michigan.
So even though you said Marlette, even though it's a small town, I bet the homes have amazing views. Because that's front of the Great Lakes, right?
We can't see the lake from where we are.
Okay.
We're in the very middle. It's very landlocked. We have some smaller lakes. We have to drive probably about half an hour to get to where you can see the lake. Where we are, you see the cornfield, the wheat field, the soybean field.
But I think that's what drives America because, if you look at every single election cycle, elections are decided by voters in the Midwest. Iowa's been one of those key states. And that's what drives our country is agriculture, being able to have good consumable items that we can eat from wheat to soybeans and so forth. That's what's driving America. And, there's obviously a push for veterans to get into farming. So farming never became something on your radar ever, I would imagine, huh?
I participated in it.
Okay.
Most of my life until I left in some form or another. If you were staying the night at a friend's house, there were chores to be done. We had a farm for a little while. It was a very small operation. Most of the fields and stuff we rented out to other farmers for their use. But we were always doing like fundraisers at school for the Michigan milk producers conglomerate that it was a co-op that for the state of Michigan, all the dairy farmers are involved in helping get their product out and everything. So in some aspect, your life is touched by farming in Michigan. Yeah. You understand it. All the teenagers get together right at the beginning of spring to pick rocks out of the fields so the farmers can plow them.
So I can imagine joining the military. And it's just me, I can imagine that your work ethic was probably 10x or maybe 5x the amount of work ethic that an average person would give from, let's say, Los Angeles or from Minnesota, perhaps, that joined the Navy as well. Would you say that to be the case, or would you say you were pretty much along the same lines of everyone else?
Well, in the farming community, it's a sun up to sundown operation.
Okay.
Play comes after the sun goes down. So we're up before the sun rises, and we don't stop until after the sun sets.
Wow.
So,
wow. So
the work ethic is a little bit different in that type of environment, but it's all we've ever known. So we don't think of it as different.
Yeah.
It's just who we are.
Absolutely. So you chose the Navy, and what I've noticed just in meeting so many veterans across the world, depending on where they're from, it kind of drives them to what branch of service they may serve in. Like for me, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, small town, similar in some regard. Obviously, we're home in the 82nd Airborne Division. It's a huge Army influence. I see it every day, so I joined the Army naturally. Would you say that to be the same for where you are in Michigan?
It's kind of like a split between the Navy, because there's a lot of water influence where we are, and the Army, because Selfridge Air National Guard base is just up the road.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of Army influence related to that. So it's kind of back and forth between the two.
You know, speaking of that, I want to shout out my friend, Kane Conway. He's a great guy. I served with him. We were in Germany together, and he's from Michigan, and he joined the Army as well. I mean, he's probably one of the hardest working guys I know. But if you guys see ads out there with a guy with a nice butt chin and a nice haircut, he was on some of the ads when we were actually deploying to Iraq. He was one of those guys that was on these ads, like to join the Army and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. So shout out to Kane Conway. So the Navy, I don't know much about the Navy, honestly. I was in the Army. So a lot of things that the Navy do is extremely taboo. And I remember offset, we were discussing submarines. And it was so interesting to me to learn about submarines. And for us Army guys, probably some Marines, even some folks in the Navy as well, Air Force, Coast Guard, give me some glimpse of how this all works. These vessels go in deep water. How does that work?
Submarines, it's a very psychologically taxing job.
Wow.
Because you are taught every single aspect of submarine life. What can go wrong? When they show, you see on Crimson Tide, there's a fire on the vessel and everybody from the XO on down's running. Yeah. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because there aren't that many bodies on board, and an emergency is an emergency for everybody. Because if the vessel implodes, it's all done.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. There's no lifeboat. There's no.
It's sink or swim in a sense. Wow.
It's save yourself or don't be saved.
Right.
So it's very psychologically taxing. When I worked at the command level at the submarine base in Kings Bay, one of the things you learn from the beginning is the first thing that happens before they step foot on a vessel is psychological testing.
That's
Even
the first
after
thing
they've been through their schools and everything else, they have to clear psych before they can get on board.
So is it safe to say that being a submariner, is that the right term, a submariner? Is it? It
depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Most of them will say yes, submariner.
What will others say?
Other people that are not submariners may say submariner.
Oh, submariner. Okay. You know, I was a Mariners fan, by the way, which is a baseball team out in Seattle, which is off topic. But for being a submariner, would you say it has, I guess, the same equivalency of being maybe an Army Ranger or a Navy SEAL? Or
well, they do the same jobs basically as everyone else in the Navy. It's just
additional duty,
a very enclosed environment. Like you have submarine sonar techs, you have surface sonar techs, you have, because the submarine sonar techs are looking for anything that's around the submarine, anything that could be dropped off some vessel above them that may then come down and hit the submarine. Yeah. And the hardest part about it is at any given point, you don't know where you are on a submarine.
So
you're given coordinates.
That's
it's
it.
Like,
wow.
Yeah, there's a box of ocean that you operate in, and it's all controlled by people above, and they're feeding information to the boat.
Okay, so break that down Barney style for us Army guys. I'm lost.
There are people in operations, like at Kings Bay, they control all the big submarines that are from that base. Okay. And they feed them their coordinates, tell them where they're going, what their tracking is for the day. Okay. What their track that they're going to be on. But it's within a box. Like if you look on the map, you'll see, the map is broken down into little boxes. One box, like the maps behind me, you'd see a different submarine in each box.
Got you. Okay.
So they don't go bump in the night.
And that's their zone.
That's their
essentially.
zone, and
Makes sense.
they operate in that zone until they're told to go somewhere else.
And how many feet deep are we talking here?
Way deep, not all the way to the ocean floor, but it's not a survivable depth.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
It's far enough that you're in what they call a crush zone.
Got you.
If the internal pressure shifts wrong in a submarine, you can see it when the submarine submerges.
Yep.
If you were to put a string across the doorway, you would see sometimes it's like you hung it straight, and then other times it dips down in the middle.
Wow.
That's because the compression of the water is so great at that depth. But now they've got depths they can't exceed.
Yeah, I would imagine
because that's
so.
dangerous.
Because it's safety reasons.
Too much pressure.
Right. Yeah, I dive, so I mean the deepest.
So you can't go too deep because your lungs will bad things.
Yeah.
Same thing with these guys. And when they come back from sea, they don't look like normal people.
Wow. What
their eyes are kind of sunken, and their skin is very sallow.
There's no sun.
It's all recycled air, no sun.
Wow. I'm already going.
So it takes a little while for them to get used to being around people they're not used to being around. It's even different than being on a deployment on a bigger vessel, because like on an aircraft carrier, which was what my first 2 deployments were on, you've got like 5,000 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to spend your entire day seeing the exact same
thing every single
people.
day. Yeah. Gosh, that could be.
You might have 100 and some on a submarine.
Yeah. I was going to ask you next.
Yes.
How many people on the submarine? 100 people on the submarine.
It depends on if it's a fast attack or like an Ohio-class submarine with the big missiles and everything on it. It depends on what it is and what their mission is.
Wow. Okay, so you retired from the Navy.
There's only so much space for human bodies.
I would imagine so, because I mean it's a submarine. I would imagine. What about the height? Because I've been on only one carrier here in Norfolk, and I was bumped my head everywhere I went. So is the height still the same as like a carrier, or? It's
like the interior spaces of a carrier.
Okay.
Very similar height-wise. Like a normal-sized person can stand up. You don't want like your 6'7" basketball player. He's going to be walking around with a crick neck for the entire time he's out there. But your average-sized people are completely comfortable.
Okay. Now, you did more than 20 years in the Navy, correct?
No,
you
just
retired.
flat 20 years and 26 days or something like that, because you can't retire till the end of the month.
Right. So a lot of guys and gals that are watching this retired as well, and some did a year, some did 5 years. And I think there's something that goes on in our mind being in the military, and we say, okay, I'm at year 5, don't want to do another 5 years, I want to re-enlist. I'm at year 10, don't want to get out, or should I stay in? Then there's the rule of if you do 10, you're halfway there, do the other 10. In your career, being retired, were you ever at a point where you wanted to say, I'm done with this? And when you were, what made you kind of persist on to get to 20 years?
Well, one of the reasons I stayed is, as I mentioned before, when I first went into the Navy, computers were just starting to become a thing. There wasn't a military command that had a computer network, anything. So I got into that business on the ground floor.
Wow, so you kind of
seen
it from
this.
this.
So much more to learn, so much more to see, so much more to do. Like the Navy sent me to Cisco Networking Academy.
Really?
They were offering it on base in Norfolk, and I
put
in my little request sheet as a young sailor does, just to see, because I'd seen it in the electronic technicians in the Navy had this magazine called Chips.
Okay.
And it was advertised in there that they were going to start offering this class.
Okay.
And I'm like, let me see what they got to say about this.
Yeah.
And at first it was nah. And then all of a sudden, like 3 days before the class was supposed to start in Norfolk, I was stationed in Florida at the time. They were like, yeah, you can go.
Wow.
We've got it all set up. I'm like, I am out the door.
That is such a valuable experience and really can lead to a lot of opportunities as well. So I guess it's safe to say that you had a very interesting 20 years, because if you're coming in on the ground floor or something and seeing it go from where it was in the 80s to where we're talking about AI nowadays in 2023, 2024, like, wow, that must have been a pretty smooth 20 years. Would you say that to be so, or am I wrong?
It was challenging because like the old guard.
Okay.
When we took the computer, when we wheeled the computer into the Admiral's office in Kings Bay, he was like, you can put that out on my yeoman's desk because I am never touching that. I don't even know what that is.
What's a yeoman?
Basically their secretary. It's the person that does all the admin stuff for them.
Okay. I'm still learning a lot of the lingo.
He said, you can take it right back out there. But then when we showed him how quickly he could get an answer to a question, he was on board. He was in. He
More
was ready.
receptive.
Because then it was like really emails and modems and
Yeah.
it was the ground floor before even surfing the internet was a thing.
Wow. That's it's crazy to hear that.
We
And put it into
ran the
perspective.
cables, we built the switches, you name it, we did it.
Wow. That's amazing. So, speaking of being receptive and learning new things and changing old behaviors and so forth, you came from the VSO world and now you're on this side of the world, if you will. There's a little bit of a difference. We love our VSOs. We have a good relationship with our VSOs. VSOs also send us business as well, and we're thankful for that. However, there's also VSOs that hate our total existence, obviously because there's a level of competitiveness, I think, that they think, but I don't think there's any competition, so to speak, because there's so many people to serve that are underserved. We can't touch them all, neither can they, but all of us are trying collectively. What would you say to be some of the things that you have noticed from being on the VSO side to now being on a more creative side that you think brings a good benefit for veterans?
I think before, when I was still on the VSO side of the house, I didn't really have a true understanding of what you guys do. And not all firms like Seven Principles are created equally.
Sure.
Seven Principles has a very strong make the right choice for the veteran kind of ethic, which is one of the things that attracted me to come here versus some of the other companies. It's all about the dollar.
Yeah.
And of course, in a way to stay busy and pay your employees, it has to some degree be about that, but it's not at the expense of the veteran. It's
Absolutely.
always the founding principle. One of the most important ones has always been, we have to do what's best for the client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that attracted me to here when my other position ceased to exist.
Yeah. It's so crazy how many VSOs we do get that want to be part of the firm, and when they get inside and they're like, oh my God, like the way you guys operate is very different. We look at cases a lot differently, and it is. We want to make sure we have the best interest of the client. There was a case that I had today. This gentleman worked with a law firm. He came to us before, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, and he said, well, I can go somewhere else get it for free. So he went somewhere else, got it for free. It didn't work for him. Maybe he forgot about us, I'm not sure, but he ended up going to a law firm. This law firm wrote a 14-page HLR. And to be honest with you, it's very well written, but we know that it's just not going to go anywhere and end up getting denied. And so now he's back to us to clean it up. And I was just very honest with him and said, there is no cleanup to do. It's already messed up. I can't reverse what was already messed up. So, from that standpoint, I think that's why a lot of clients do like dealing with us. But I think they also like the fact that we are very personable too, that we are human beings and we actually understand what's going on too. So for those veterans that have cases that they think may be shaky or maybe they think won't work, what advice would you have for them just from your experience of doing this on this side?
I would say let somebody look at it that does this all the time.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to your VA claim, your own personal VA claim, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You know what you want the end result to be so badly. And to you, you can see it plainly, and you just can't understand why the VA can't see it the same way you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when we look at it from a point of, does the evidence meet the burden of the law?
Right.
What does the rater need to see to do their job effectively?
Absolutely.
And that's how we build the case.
I think once more practitioners, whether you're an attorney, a consultant, VSO, whomever you are helping this veteran out, I think once more people see that keeping it short, simple, to the point, you're dealing with a human being on the end of this decision. And, me as a former rater myself, I quite frankly, when I was reading that today, I told this veteran, I would deny your case just based off, it looked like the attorney was scrambling, like they were litigating. This isn't litigation. This isn't you versus me. This is a non-adversarial process. Give me what I'm looking for. It will take you a paragraph to do it, maybe a page at the very most. And if you do that for me as a rater, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. So I want to ask you, you've been doing this for a long time, and you have a lot of knowledge about the process, about the VA claims, how it all works, the internal thinking of it, what's not written but thought, and what's also implied. From your experience, what was the worst case you ever dealt with in your career?
The worst case?
Yeah.
It kind of was the worst case at the beginning and it ended up being the best case.
Yeah.
I had a young man who had gone to Qatar. He was exposed to a very specific radar.
Okay.
Or radar, and this is pre-PACT Act.
Okay.
So cancer claims for those kind of things were very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But and at first I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make the radar understand that thing A caused thing B.
Right.
It's really largely a game of connect the dots.
Yeah.
If you can arrange the dots between A and B in a logical fashion that makes sense and stays in the confines of the law, 9 times out of 10, your claim's going to get approved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so what we found was the doctor that was treating him was very familiar. He was military. He was very prior military. I think he might even still been in the Guard.
Okay.
So he was very familiar with this specific radar because he had been at the base hospital there in Qatar.
Okay.
So he knew all about what was on the base and everything. And as a practicing oncologist, he was able to line that evidence up for us.
Right.
The bad part about it was in the process, I made the Army Reserves really mad because they'd been kind of ignoring this kid and his cancer who was still a reservist. They just made him medically unfit to drill and kind of left him over there stewing. Well, when we got him a rating decision that said he was 100% permanently and totally disabled, then they were forced to address the fact. And they had to medically retire him.
Yeah.
And they were, I'm like, you guys had 2 years to do the right thing before we ever got to him.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a worst and best case because I bet he was so happy, but also that he has to deal with now this Army side that just see things a little different.
Oh, yeah, they were mad.
They were pissed.
They were mad more at me than him.
Right.
Because he was sitting there in the background like a good soldier waiting for the Army to decide what to do about him. But he was paying for all this cancer treatment out of pocket and everything else.
Oh, my God.
It was awful. And when everything worked out, they had to take care of him because the direct correlation between his duty and his cancer had been established.
Absolutely.
And so there was a lot of things that had to happen.
Yeah. The PACT Act, I think, was probably one of the better legislations that I've seen happen.
It is by far the best piece of legislation because there are so many cancers out there they're killing veterans every day.
Absolutely.
That are now, redid so many cancer claims.
Yep.
That had been previously denied because there was no way to prove a service connection. But they were on that list, and we were just 0995 after 09. I called every client I had. I said, look, we're having a meeting. We're putting these claims back in because it was the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. Absolutely. Yep. And the thing is, whether you think you are eligible for these presumptives or not, I tell veterans to make sure you get your case filed, get the most you can out of it because something's coming up later. Because we saw with Vietnam veterans, right? We saw the presumptives in 38 CFR 3.309. We saw how those created opportunities for Vietnam veterans and their families. But we also are seeing now the younger guys and gals, the ones that are my age, 40 years old, 35, some are 29, some are 50, that, deployed from 03 to current, and now there's service connection for those veterans. So this is a huge piece of legislation for them. I did want to share one of my worst cases that I had at the VA. So, when you join the VA as a raider, you get all the horrible cases. I never forget this guy. He's a Vietnam veteran from Santa Barbara, California. The case has sat around the VA for so long. By the time I got to it, it was at year 10.
Oh, no.
It was at year 10. And it was my first case as a raider. It was a paper case. And the paper, I'm 6'4" and some change. The paper was up to my hip. So, we were like here off the ground. It was pretty high. And this is when they give you thumbers. And I don't know if this may be old school, but you remember the thumbers?
I know.
You get the thumbers and you're going through all this paperwork. It took me about 10 working days to get onto the bottom of it. Finally awarded this veteran 100% permanent total. Dated it back to 1995 or so. This was like 2012.
Ooh, it was a NEMR claim.
Yeah, it was a NEMR claim. Massive back pay. We're talking, 6-figure range, $400,000, $500,000 back pay. The veteran had passed away by the time I made my decision. It was heartbreaking. The veteran had passed away maybe 6 months prior. Because like I said, this case has been sitting around. It's been kicked around. It's a paper file. You remember paper files with the VA?
Yep.
I mean, it's nasty.
We did paper in my office.
Yeah, so
before Dropbox really became a thing.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that. Like the paper was crazy.
I used to take my truckload of cases on down to the VA in Norfolk every week.
It was so bad that the veteran passed away 6 months prior to making my decision. The wife, who we tried to, make sure the dependent was taken care of, passed away a week prior, and we could not find next of kin. And so the money, I'm not sure what happened with the money, but it didn't go out, obviously. And the case sat. That was my first case ever in my career. And from that day forward, I wanted to find a way as a rater to communicate to the veteran directly without putting in my decision. Because I know veterans don't read what I'm writing.
Right.
They only read money, yes or no, and how frequently am I getting this every month?
That's right.
Great. And we're good. I'm 70%. That's all I need. That's all I need to know. But I wanted to explain that there's more to your case than what's going on here.
Right.
There's definitely something else you can do as well. So I think being in the positions that we are in now, where we're on the more private side, we can have that one-on-one facing with the client. We can definitely be a lot more helpful to them and actually encourage them as well. What case brought you to tears? Good tears.
There was a widow.
Okay.
Her husband was a World War II veteran.
Okay.
I learned about him through his letters to her. He had been a POW.
Wow.
In France, in the middle of winter. Him and his buddies decided they were not going to spend Christmas in captivity.
Wow.
So they finally broke out Christmas Eve and did the whole Snoopy and the Red Baron, sneaking across enemy lines in the dead of night with no shoes.
Wow.
Barely pajamas on in the dead of winter over there. All these frostbite-related injuries, all the stuff that had gone on with him. He had had major medical conditions because of this for the rest of his life. Malnutrition, it's horrible. And he had never filed until right before he found out he had cancer.
Wow.
He filed this claim, and he did it good.
Okay.
He did a good job. He had all his post-service medical records.
Okay.
He had all the proof of being a POW, and they get special consideration anyway.
Yep.
And all he wanted was for his wife to be okay.
Yeah.
And when he brought me this 2 wagon loads of paper,
Man.
sick already,
Gosh.
and he's like, we're going to file this claim because I want my wife to be okay.
Yeah. I've seen it a number of times where veterans come to us, want to make sure that their spouses, wives, and husbands are taken care of. Sometimes it put a little pressure on me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like I'm very confident in what I can do, and I'm sure you're very confident because we have a lot of experience. But in this field of rating and helping veterans get disability claims, it changes so frequently, and there are so many things that you learn from. I learn something new every single day about different conditions, how they're caused, and so forth. And for me, that's a lot of pressure. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of pressure. The client doesn't know that, and I'm sure they don't feel that. But for me internally, just being honest with you, it's a lot of pressure because, for one, I see the bigger picture.
Right.
I see the bigger picture. I totally understand. I totally get it. But I want to make sure the VA sees the bigger picture from a claim standpoint. Like they don't just see it for what the client is telling us, but for what evidence is actually there and actually awarded to the client, so the veteran spouse can perform in DIC. So that's crazy. That's crazy. So what ended up happening? Did the widow? How did it work? What was the final?
She got a check for over $150,000.
Wow.
And DIC and a whole bunch of stuff. They took good care of her nursing, because she's the surviving spouse, and he had put that she needed nursing home care. Because once he started getting sick, he knew he wasn't going to be there to take care of him. I only saw him one time. I really got to know about him through her. Gotcha. And visiting her in the nursing home and explaining to her what was going on with this case.
Yeah.
And where we were at and everything. And when she got that big check and she knew she didn't and was going to be getting money every month and knew she never had to worry, I remember looking at her and telling her, this is why he did it.
Absolutely, yeah.
It wasn't about him anymore at that point. He knew his time was short.
Yep.
He did it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had another special guy much like that. This gentleman, he was a younger guy, though, Iraq War veteran. He recently died out of San Antonio, Texas. He died at 62 years of age. Very young man. He came to us about 2 years ago, and he expressed to me, he was like, hey, I'm not dying, but I think I'm going to die soon. I feel this way because I've been sick. I've been out of the hospital. Things aren't looking so great for me. So what money can I get potentially? We ended up getting him up to 100% permanent total. It took us 3 tries. We got him from 0 to I think 50 to 90, and then it took like 2 more times to get to 100% because there was a case that didn't work well enough to perform mathematically to get him to 100%.
Right.
Once he got to 100% permanent total, he passed away. I think we got notification of his death last month. And to know that I've been working with this guy for 2 years, I'm not sure how it's going to land as far as DIC. I don't have the information just yet, but that's been one of the most remarkable cases because as I work with this gentleman over the 2-year time span, voice is getting raspier. You hear that, I think they call it the death rattle in your throat. I'm hearing that from him while I'm on the phone with him, and I'm just like, I need to perform. It was so stressful to perform because I wanted to make sure I found whatever I could get my hands on to get that 100%, but also get it permanent and total, because that, of course, is a huge benefit for his wife. And so now we're working with the wife. The wife reached out to us last month when he passed away. We gave her a grieving period. So we just got back into re-engaging this process last week. And I think sometime around 2024, we should have our DIC kind of prepared for and so forth. But one thing I do want to share with veterans is to start this as early as possible, because I think when you wait that long, it creates a lot of stress. And for us, I think we can handle it because we're used to it. This is what we do every day. We've seen thousands of cases, but you may fall into the hands of someone that may not know what they're doing.
Right.
And if it's messed up, you don't get a lot of chances to unmesh up your case because it's messed up forever. So for veterans out there that are listening, if you got a claim, maybe less than 100%, you definitely should get it started as early as possible, because the longer you wait, it sometimes may not be in your best interest to get it to where you wanted to get to. So with that being said, I want to have some random conversations. So what are some things that, outside of cases and outside of, dealing with veterans, what are some things Marty's into in your free time?
I do a lot of reading.
Okay.
I am a research junkie.
Okay.
If I find something I'm interested in, then I want to know every single thing about it.
Okay.
So searching the internet, in the library, I'll be in like digital archives of who knows where, looking something up to find out. I like to know how things work. Okay. I guess that's why I was such a good electronics technician, is how does it work? Why does it work? What can I do if it's not working to make it do that again?
Yeah.
Is a big deal to me. I want things to work the way they're supposed to.
Okay.
And if they don't, I want to know why they don't.
Right. So troubleshooting and problem solving.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Constantly.
That's why this is a good line of work for you.
And I'm quick at it because in the Navy, everything happens in real time. Where typically for the systems I worked on, we were working on them in a combat zone. Okay. And it has to work. So it just really does.
What are combat zones like for the Navy? I know it may sound like an ignorant question, but what is it like?
Well, for example, once we go through the Suez.
What is that?
Suez Canal.
The Suez Canal. Okay.
In between Africa and like Saudi Arabia and stuff, the Suez Canal.
Okay.
And then we curve around and go through the Straits of Hormuz, which is one of the most dangerous choke points for shipping. Wow. Anytime you hear Iran's been out there creating a ruckus, it's right around the Straits of Hormuz.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Because it's a very indefensible spot.
Okay.
You can't do a lot of flipping around in an aircraft carrier because we don't turn like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
it's you're in a very vulnerable situation. So normally most of our battle group is around us when we're going through restricted maneuverability.
So the battle group are those smaller vessels that...
Your guided missile cruisers, your destroyers, the things that can defend us. Because a aircraft carrier can fight. We have limited fight the ship capability, but we depend on the smaller ships in our battle group to... swipe them people away for us. So
what's the, and I'm like I said, I'm pretty ignorant towards naval operations. The word carrier allows me to think is to carry somebody else. So
carry aircraft.
To carry aircraft
That's
and to carry sailors. That's its whole
purpose intent.
And
everybody that's on there is supporting that mission.
Okay.
It's like 4.5 acres of sovereign U.S. territory where we launch and land our aircraft.
Whoa, 4.5 acres?
Of sovereign
territory.
U.S. territory.
Wow.
And we can take it anywhere we need to.
Wow. So these battleships, so let's go back. The carrier, how many folks are on that? Like you said, 5,000 people?
Around 5,000, yes.
Wow. So that's, I mean, it's a city,
because
small town.
it's 3,000 and some when the ship doesn't have its air wing on board.
Okay.
But once we bring all those planes on board, they all have their own little crews, their maintenance people,
Okay.
their pilots, all their stuff associated with it. They do all that themselves.
Okay.
We do the larger support for that. Like we have the jet engine repair, but some of their people work in our spaces during deployment as well.
Got you. So those battleships, how many people are on those?
Like
1,000?
300 and some.
300. So that's why there's more of them, because
much smaller.
Smaller, more agile, quicker, but they have firepower to, of course,
Yes.
defend. Okay. Makes sense.
Then you have guided missile cruisers, and they've got the big firepower. They launch the Harpoon missiles.
Wow.
The ones you hear about where they took out a land target,
Yeah.
that's usually either a guided missile cruiser.
Wow. Okay. So you guys have a lot of uniforms. How does
Not
it
as
work?
many anymore. We pared that down
Okay. So
because it's just too much to carry.
it is a lot to carry. It's a lot to think of as well, because in the Army I think I had one uniform, which was ACUs, and I had, of course, Class A's or Class B's. How do you guys work it? Because, here, being around the Navy here is all so new to me. And I'm learning something every day. I'm learning something new about the Navy. And I see different uniforms. I see guys that are in like khakis. I see guys in white. I see guys and gals in like the ACU pattern. Like, how does it work with what uniform you wear each day? How does that work?
Some of it's organizational clothing.
Okay.
Like when I was at the Pentagon, I wore working blues, working whites, dress blues, dress whites. That's it.
But how do you know what to wear each day? Does it come up?
It goes by the time of year.
The time of the year? Wow. Okay.
Whites are spring and summer. Blues
okay.
are fall and winter.
So I guess the official day to fall, you
Dress blues is for a formal occasion.
Okay. Yeah.
Like when
nice.
you put on your fancy clothes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And working blues or working whites are your everyday.
Every day. Okay.
Khaki is E7 and above, or officers.
There's a rank structure to what you wear as far as
To the khaki
color.
colored shirt and pants.
Okay.
Now, then when you get into the, we call them BDUs,
Okay.
that type of uniform, that's like a tactical mission. You're deploying on a ship,
Okay.
or you're a CB, where you go out and deploy with whomever you need to build something for.
Yeah. Yeah, because I see blue uniforms. I see the ACU pattern ones or BDU pattern ones. It's like
It comes down to what the job is, what the
Okay.
mission is. Those are very mission-oriented clothes. Most people on shore duty, their working uniform now is that BDU pattern.
got you.
That
okay.
you see.
So in the Army we call it MOS. In the Navy it's called a rate.
It is.
And so from
And then we have enlisted classification codes that come with the rate, depending on what school. Like I'm an electronics technician, but there's so many different kinds. Some are more radar oriented. Some of them are more communications oriented. I
Okay.
was a
That
communications
makes sense.
subset that did computers.
Okay.
So what your school is, what your like when I went to my last ship, I had already switched over to being a career counselor, but because my orders were written before I went to career counselor school and my rate changed,
Yeah.
they went to the ship with me being an ET and listed all my fancy electronic schools, and the communications officer was very excited
Okay.
because I have some very specialized NECs, and then he kept reading in my orders, found out I was a career counselor, and was like, but I can't have her.
Got you.
But I still did some work for them anyway.
Okay.
Because it's a small ship. You pitch in where you need
You
to.
picture me. Oh, got you. Yeah, like the Army sometimes. Now I understand that there can be sailors that do not have a rate.
Yes.
How is that possible?
We have a program called undesignated. Back in the day, it was called undesignated strikers.
Okay.
You go into a career path. Seaman, airman, fireman.
Okay.
Different rates are assigned based on those. Like ET is a seaman rate.
Okay.
Aviation rates, airman rate. Fire control, engineering, that kind of stuff.
Got you. Okay.
Then we have construction, and those are going to be CBs one day.
Okay.
But you get the time to see everything that's going on. Like they'll usually send you to a deployable unit
Yeah.
so you can see all the different jobs. And then you can what they call strike for a career. And then you get accepted into the school for that and move forward from there. Or some of them are testable. You can learn the job, take that test for the next higher rate. If you pass it, you then get awarded that
Gotcha.
designator.
Got you.
So there's many
Wow.
different paths. The Navy is, in my eyes, and maybe it's just because I grew up in the Navy, one of the most self-sufficient forces.
And it seems to be really big on the academia side too. And it seems
Very smart.
They seem to allow you to develop as well because when I was in the Army, if you couldn't, land an MOS, you were 11 Bravo.
Yeah, that's what you work.
Which is infantry. And my understanding is that the Navy, you're a firefighter first, and then you're a sailor?
Or your ship's maintenance.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of different pieces.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we all maintain the ship.
Gotcha.
Because if the ship sinks, it's a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to take that thing back to the pier. That's how you get off it and go home.
Yeah. So do loose lips really sink ships?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. You can't tell your friends and family exactly where you are. Because email's a thing now. Social media is a thing now. Facebook is a thing now. There's a version of it for while you're on the ship and deployed.
So while you're deployed,
so then
you
we
still
have to
have
teach people to a degree.
Okay.
Everything's filtered through the ship.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
But you have to teach people what you can and can't say. Like you can't say, I'm pulling into Bahrain next week.
Yeah.
Because we don't want our enemies to necessarily know. Up until 24 hours
Okay.
before you get somewhere, ships moving is classified.
Okay.
It protects
Yes,
what we're
OPSEC.
doing.
Yeah,
We're
the
right.
Army same
Normal
way.
OPSEC. You don't tell
Yeah.
people all your beeswax.
Absolutely. Yeah, it
But
makes
then
sense.
we have our low codes. You can break it down.
Yeah, yeah. So
I'll be home 7 days before my grandmother's friend's birthday.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense to me. So you guys have, I think it's called Liberty, is what you guys call
Yes.
it?
When
And
you
I
are
hear that's
not
like the
on
time you guys
duty,
go crazy.
You are on Liberty.
Okay. Liberty is like
Liberty
leave,
is anytime you're not
R&R?
at work.
Oh.
Anytime you're not at work. If you're not at work, at the end of the day, you go on Liberty. That's it.
So I come to work at, let's say, 0600, and then do you guys do PT? Like, do you guys like run around okay. Because there's this thing that the Navy and the Air Force doesn't do much PT like the Army and the Marine Corps do.
Oh, no, not to the degree that y'all
Not
do.
to the
But you
degree.
also guys walk to the battle. We don't. We stay right there on our ship. And
That's true.
We wave and promise to shoot past you.
Thank you.
We drop them off and then we promise to shoot past them. That's
Yeah.
what we do.
So Liberty is basically any time off. Like if it's 5 p.m.,
Yes.
you're going home, so you're on Liberty.
Yep.
Okay, so what is leave called? Like, is there a certain term for leave?
Leave is different. Leave you don't have, it's not broken up by duty.
Okay.
Leave is you are unavailable for duty.
Right, you put in a DA
It's-
from 31,
Yep.
or maybe
Yeah.
it's probably something different, and you go off to.
You put in your little leave paper and it
You
says
go.
you're unavailable.
So what is it called when you guys go into a different city or a different port? Like, isn't it something called
It's
for
still
that?
Liberty.
Oh, it's still Liberty.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking, for the Army,
We
it's
call it
R&R.
a port visit. The ship pulls in for a port visit.
Okay.
We're required on our way to the Gulf to make and on our way home from the Gulf to make so many stops in the Med
Yeah.
so that the sailors can go spend the money in
Yeah.
these towns
Makes
that
the
allow
economy-
us to pull in place.
Makes the economy better.
It's our positive community relationship project. We're
I
going to
think
go buy all your stuff.
Yeah, I think that's
We're
very
gonna
necessary.
Eat all your food.
Yeah.
And we might drink all your
liquor.
all of it, especially if we've never tried it before. Because
Yeah.
by gosh,
Yeah.
we should do that.
So I think the term "drink like a sailor" is true. My neighbor.
Oh, it is.
My neighbor, this guy, I don't know how he functions, but my neighbor, he's an amazing guy. He's a SEAL. His wife, I think he's a SEAL, but his wife was in the Navy as well. She got out. She did 5 years. He's still going at it. He's at year, 10 or 15 or something like that. And we didn't talk for the first, I would say, month I moved to the neighborhood. We didn't talk at all. And all the neighbors came by my house, knocked on the door, bringing muffins, cookies, and hellos. He never said anything. One day I'm outside my house. I'm putting a flag on the facade of my property, on the front facade. I'm putting the Army flag up. He comes out with the baby and the carrier right here. He's got a bottle in his hand. Like you can't tell what it is, but it's a cup of whatever. And he's walking, across the street to my yard. He's walking on the grass, and he stops on my grass and looks at me. I'm like, "What's up, man?" I said, "You can't walk on the grass, dude." I was like, "You must have been in the Navy." It's, Army joke. You walk on the grass, it's like big trouble. He was like, "Oh, Army guys, I figure you're in the Army, He was like, he introduced himself. We had a good time. This guy comes to my house all the time and drinks me under the table. Like, every time I turn around, he wants to have a new drink. So, yeah. So is that like a program you guys go through? Like to learn the basics
You work your way up.
You work your way up.
Yeah. It's kind of like getting advanced.
Okay.
Look, I was in Bahrain once. And it was hot. Oh my,
yeah.
hot, like You know, the desert
Absolutely.
hot.
Desert heat.
Special,
Absolutely. That dry,
special
special
hot
heat.
that you don't have it
Oh,
anywhere
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Here in the United States, no way could I drink 26 shots of tequila.
26 shots of tequila?
You sweat it out and it's gone so fast you can't even get drunk. It's terrible. It was
Wow.
like a challenge then.
I would be dead. I'll go to sleep.
I should have been. If I hadn't
26.
seen the bill
Yeah.
when we got ready to leave,
Yeah.
I would never have believed it. And I was like, but you're sweating it out so fast.
Wow.
I should have been dead. If I tried that here, it'd be
Yeah.
over.
Oh my God.
It'd
yeah.
be done. No.
Yeah.
But it was, they were like, girl, drink. And she's walking around like, sup? Yes.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a minute. Be quiet.
You know, so in closing, we discovered a lot of great things about you. I learned that you're from right here on the glove. Yeah.
No, middle of the thumb.
Middle of the thumb.
Middle, heart of the thumb.
Heart of the thumb.
Right there.
Oh, okay.
It's all land.
Gotcha. Okay, so
Gotta
this
drive
is
to the
land and
beach.
this is water, and
Yes.
then you're right here inland. Okay, so I learned a lot about you as well. Learned about your Navy career also. Last question: what got you into the VSO? And did you see yourself when you were in the Navy getting out and helping veterans get disability? Did you ever see that happening?
To some degree, yes, because
Okay.
while I was in the Navy, one of the things I did as a career counselor was helped sailors access programs that would improve their quality of life.
Yeah.
Explain to them how different processes in the Navy worked so that they could learn how to shape their career in a way that was not only advantageous to the Navy, but advantageous to themselves as well.
Wow.
You don't know the answer to the question if you don't ask it.
Absolutely. Or have someone that knows which questions to ask and guide
Ask
them.
the right person.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Marty, thank you. It's been great.
Anytime.
For you guys out there that love this content, be sure to share with your friends. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And more importantly, we want to hear your story as well. If you served in the Navy, you found it interesting, drop your comments below. Maybe you're an Army guy or gal, maybe you was in the Marine Corps, another branch of service. Be free to write your comments below, and we look forward to the next show with you guys. Have a good one.